Welcome to First Down Sports, Canadian edition. Episode number 9.
Yeah.
This is crazy. We're almost up to 10.
Almost double digits.
And we'll talk about number 10 in a few seconds. I'm your host, Ray Dunn. And sitting with me, as always, is Andy Jardine.
Yo. How's it going?
Very good. Very good. And we've got a little bit of a special guest with us at the back of the room. There is no Nick Dunn tonight. So sitting with us is the one and only Jeannie Burke.
Jeannie B.
Jeannie B. Oh, yeah. Jeannie B. Jeannie B.
Jeannie B.
Welcome, Jeannie B.
Guys.
Hello.
So we've got a big show here tonight. Before we get in that, though, let's talk about our sponsors, Andy.
Sure.
If it's Monday, Tuesday, whatever night of the week it is, I think you get the point. You need a beer, you go out and get yourself some Moose Light.
Scary good.
Scary good. Scary good. And if you need hats, shirts, jackets, pens, whatever the case may be, make sure you go out and see our buddies, the Doyle's Corporate Image.
Doyle's rule. And they were ruling the basketball court last night, too.
Yeah,
on the Magic. You see the Doyles.
Cam.
The Doyles sponsored the Kiss Cam. Never heard from them again after that Kiss Cam, but
No.
you know, they chose wisely, I guess.
Actually, I did hear their name one other time, but I don't know what it was around. But yeah, the Doyle's Kiss Cam. That's something we'll have to keep in mind around the golf course.
There you go.
And lastly, if your kitchen sucks, I want you to try out our good buddy Robert Luongo's Done Right sauce.
Yeah.
Luongo loves this stuff. Why do you think he created a sauce and called it Done Right?
There's a lot about this segment every week that I can't explain. But it's available in Sobeys, Longo's, Jacobson's, and at the farmer's market.
At the farmer's market. They were back at the farmer's market doing the local Moncton farmer's market. So, again, that's my little brother Nick's company, Done Right sauce. Comes in numerous different flavors. And like Andy said, go to one of those spots and you can check it out.
Yep.
We got a big show here tonight, Andy. We got a big interview. On top of that, we're going to be talking Vanier and Grey Cup, which is coming up this weekend.
Yeah.
It's 2 days away from the Vanier, 3 days away from Grey Cup.
Yeah. And with the buzz that we're hearing a little bit about a potential franchise, CFL franchise coming to Halifax, I have a little bonus conversation I want to kick off with you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That would be... Now, let me ask you this. It would have been great for that team to be here in Moncton.
Yeah, sure. We're pretty biased. We think this would make the most sense.
I think it would make the most sense, but I think as a city, we blew it. And I can tell you numerous reasons why later.
Yeah.
But if they put that team in Halifax and there's game on a Wednesday night,
Yeah.
are you making that trip to go see that football game?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Jeannie, are we going to that football game?
Go.
Yeah,
are we
I think
getting
so.
season tickets to the Halifax CFL football team?
Maybe if we have season tickets to IKEA.
There you go.
I'm sure they give those out free.
Sorry, that was probably kind of dumb.
That was kind of...
Can't really have season tickets to...
If you could, there'd be no price low enough.
All right. Well, on that joke, I think it's time that we get into our next segment. Our next segment is we have a great interview here tonight.
Yeah.
This guy is one of the toughest coaches you're going to find around the province of New Brunswick.
All right.
Not just tough, but knowledgeable.
All right.
This guy knows his stuff. And you've heard me talk about the town of Sackville numerous times about the fact that these guys are the biggest, smallest town in Canada when it comes to football.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to this interview. So let's take a break. We're going to skip over to our interview, and we'll be back after the interview to talk to you about the Vanier Grey Cup as well as numerous other football issues.
See you soon.
See you in a bit. All right, here we go, guys. I told you that we had a big guest tonight. Our guest tonight has been working the high school football fields with myself for a number of years. He is the head coach of the Tantramar Regional High School Titans from Sackville, New Brunswick. which you've often heard me refer to as the biggest, smallest town when it comes to football in Canada. He is known for his passion on the football field, but he's also known for his knowledge of the game and actually the rules of football. On a lot of the coaches, your rule knowledge is up there. It's up there.
Study that stuff.
Yeah?
Yeah.
On top of being a coach, he's also a father of some very quality football athletes that have come out of Sackville. It's my pleasure to welcome Scott O'Neill to First Down Sports.
Thanks, boys.
How's it going, Scott?
Great. Wonderful.
Yeah. Well, now I know Ray's super familiar with you. We talked about it already. I have a bit of ties to Sackville from Mount A, but besides that, not super familiar. So just tell me about like your history with the football program at Tantramar.
Well, I started coaching at Tantramar 20 years ago, believe it or
Whoa,
not.
all right.
Almost half my life. So right out of university, I got involved the year I graduated from university. Good friend of mine, Dave Burns, asked me to come on and coach, and I came on as a position coach. And 10 years ago, in 2008, he asked me to take over as head coach, and I did that. And so 10 years later, here we are.
Awesome.
And so it's been a long. The seasons are long. They're a grind, but it's. I love it. I absolutely love football, and especially now that my kids are involved with it, it's not as hard because I'm involved with them as well. So I'm at the field with them. So
Now, are you sort of a lifer in Sackville, or
I'm born and raised in Sackville.
Yeah. So you played for this team too.
I played for Tantramar, then I
Okay.
went and played at Mount A. And then I
Awesome.
went away for 4 years, and I came back.
Wow.
So
Awesome.
I've been around the program for a long time.
One of our biggest friends of the program, a couple of years, well, it was last year after Ottawa won the Grey Cup, and I saw on the front page of the Times and Transcript Ray Perkin,
Oh, yeah.
and
We love
Ray
Ray.
and Ray with a W,
Yeah.
and I was like, I thought I was the only one.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was one 20 minutes down the road. So I reached out to Ray and invited him on the show, and he's now been on what? He's,
Oh yeah, we talk to him all the time.
He's
he's
on
our
Twitter.
CFL insider.
Yeah.
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 But he brought up the gentleman you just brought up, Dave Burns,
Dave
told
Burns,
me
yeah.
to make sure to, because Ray talks about how this guy, he's his mentor as far as football goes.
Oh, absolutely.
Is he still involved with the game?
Well,
or-
actually, this year he after 28 seasons. So
Yeah.
you imagine putting 28 high school football seasons in.
Wow.
Okay, he's retiring this year. So
Okay.
Dave is retired
Yeah.
officially as of our last game. So he's been around a long time. So Dave brought me on, but prior to when he brought me on, my deal was if I come on, you have to stay on.
Right.
So he was one of those guys. He stepped aside. He let me do my thing.
Yeah.
But I was, as a mentor, it was always good to have a guy there you could lean on and ask questions for sure.
Right.
Up until still now, I'll still use them as a resource for sure.
Okay. And maybe this is the guy, I don't know. But one of the biggest things about Titans football, you guys are known for tough, hard-nosed football. And I'm not talking just the high school team. Whether it's Pee Wee, whether it's Bantam, Adam, it doesn't matter the level of ball. It is tough, hard-nosed football that comes out of Sackville. Where does that come from, and who kind of got that history started?
Well, if you look at high school or Sackville football now, I'll talk about it now, and then I'll go back to the sort of the past.
Okay.
But Sackville football right now is all about we. It's all about we. Everything is not me. It's not him. It's us. It's we.
Right.
And we run from in spring. I go out with coaches from the high school team, and we start working with 5-year-old kids.
Wow.
And we teach them how to tackle with no gear. We teach them how to take handoffs. We teach them how to run patterns. We teach them how to catch footballs.
Yeah.
So we technically work their skills from a very young age. And if you teach a young kid how to properly tackle, okay, guess what? They're going to get better and better and better at it.
Right.
And they're going to learn to tackle properly, so they're not going to hurt themselves.
Right.
And one of the biggest things we won a championship this year, but one of the proudest things I am about this year, we had absolutely 0 injuries this year. So you talk about, you're sitting here saying,
Sorry to interrupt for a second. This is funny. This is a first for First Down Sports.
This is the first time we've had this guy on set.
Phil must like you.
Yeah.
Because he's never come down on set when we're recording.
Never bothered.
okay. That's fine.
That's a First Down exclusive, everybody.
go.
That's Phil the Racer. This guy ran 106 races back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is funny as heck. All right, back to what you were saying.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, everybody's saying, well, you guys must be like, you must run practices like crazy, man, and you must do all this crazy stuff. But we had no injuries. Like, so how, if we're doing what everybody thinks we're doing, how could you possibly get injuries? But it's because we're teaching the kids at a very young age how to do everything properly. And we're, to be honest with you, what we are, a lot of the coaches are in town. We're all friends. We're all friends. And we just really work on technique, and we're really perfectionists to make everything work right, because we don't have a lot of kids. So, for example, we have 10 kids, 10 boys per grade that play football and sackball. That's it. That's all there is.
Right.
So with those 10, we got to make sure that they're good.
Right.
And that's why we work with them. So think about it, 10 kids per grade.
Well, it's funny, and I want to stick on that, but I just want to drive this point home with Andy. When I'm officiating a game, or even when I was there watching the high school final, and you look at some of these other teams, Moncton High and Harrison Trumbull are kind of funny because they're carrying the roster out of an NFL team on their sidelines. And then you look and you see the Sackville team, and I'm not talking size and stature of the players, but as far as the numbers, you guys always looked so outnumbered on the field as far as the number of guys on the sideline. And a lot of your players are playing both sides of the ball. And the theory always is, or, has always been, at some point they're going to get tired out. Your kids don't get tired out, Scott. What's up with that?
Oh, to be honest with you, that's Titan football.
Yeah.
So you go back to, when we really go back to the 70s, when football really became football in Sackville and became football at Tantramar. And you take guys like Bruce McMillan, and you take Chris Porter and Mark Bowen, which is Michael Bowen's father, if you guys probably know Michael, Dave Jardine, Mr. Petrie, like I could just keep going and naming guys. They taught us how to play football and to be a two-way player, because there's never been a lot of kids at Tantramar. There's 400 kids at Tantramar right now. Back when I was there was maybe 700, 800, maybe 7. So the motto was always like, we have to get these guys in the best shape possible. So my motto every single year, I tell the kids day one, our goal is to be the best shape football team come playoff time.
Right.
Not tomorrow, not next week, but when playoffs start, we have to be the best shape football team.
Right.
And our other motto was, you get us to the fourth quarter. You get us to the fourth quarter, nobody's going to beat us in the fourth quarter. If we're in the game in the fourth quarter, and this is why even in the final, as tight as it was, all the sideline guys they had been in first championship game, we were behind in the fourth quarter in 2015. 2016, we were behind in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And then the boys just looked at us in the fourth quarter and said, we're okay, coach. I kept saying on the bench, boys, let's just get to the fourth quarter. If we're down by less than one, we're okay. Right. Because I knew we were in better shape. I knew eventually the conditioning and all the stuff we've done all year long would kick in. And that's,
Yeah, you've solved a mystery for me here, because in my years at Mount A, I was very stuck on campus, right? Like clearly, I lived off campus for a while, but it was like in that big old blue house that used to be right where the old liquor store was.
Oh yeah,
that spot.
When did you live there?
Charles Estabrooks was our.
He's still there.
Yeah, I imagine he's around. I lived there from 2001 to 2003.
Okay.
We were heartbroken when they moved the liquor store, but before that,
terrible.
Ray, we used to be sitting there watching hockey on a Saturday night, and it'd be like minus 30. Snow, and in our flip-flops we'd just walk over and buy a single. Right. Anyway, but I've been wondering forever, because I stayed for a spring session one year, and that's when all the students are gone, and I mean, my gosh, Ray, I had to drive 5 minutes to find a person. Wow. So I'm wondering, this extremely dominant football team, like, is there an entire city of Sackville that I haven't seen yet? Because I was wondering where, but now you're making this more clear to me now, I guess. So
yeah.
Well, the thing is, like, we've had success for the last few years, but I'll tell you a story. Okay, in 2009, over here on the Rocky Stone Field, we got beat 82-0. 82-0 to Bernice McNaughton and Ed Wasson and Tim Finney and
I remember
Laird and all those guys. Okay, and just put it into perspective. Okay, so back then you were a referee.
Yeah.
Were you refereeing then? So
Yeah.
there was 4 50-minute quarters.
Yeah.
Okay, 4 50-minute quarters. There was no mercy rule back then,
Right.
and we were getting our asses handed to us. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Say anything you want.
And Bill Peckrell was actually the referee,
Okay.
and he walked down the sideline, and he whispered in my ear. He said, "Scott, do you want us to run the clock?" And I said, "Are you kidding me? There's no way I'm running the clock.
I remember
I'm
this.
not doing this.
I absolutely
I'm not
remember
going to
this.
do this to
Yeah.
these kids.
Yeah.
I'm not going to quit. I'm not throwing the towel in.
Yeah.
Okay. So 2 years later, because that was mostly grade 10 team.
Right.
It was almost exclusively grade 10s.
Okay.
2 years later, we're playing on the same field against the same team in a championship, and we lose by 1 point.
Yeah.
Okay. So those kids, like that, so that was Michael Bowen. That was a bunch of kids. Like Michael Bowen was, the leader of that team.
Right.
And we ended up losing.
Yeah.
He went on to university, had a great career, and a lot of those kids now have graduated university, and they're all successful.
Right.
It's unbelievable what they learned from that day. And when I see them around, I'll be at the bar and we'll have a drink or whatever, and they say, that was one of their turning points of their life of like, why you don't quit.
Right.
Why you don't quit. So that why you think all this stuff that happened this year bothered me so much was
Yeah.
because I've been there on the other side. And everybody thinks, oh, you're from Sackville and Tantramar, and all you ever do is win.
Right.
No. We lost 82-0 that year. We lost 68-0. We lost 55-0 to Matthew Martin.
Right.
Like, we got absolutely handed to us all year. And
Right.
we had a roster of 25 grade 10 kids.
Right.
And we never threw the towel in. We had injuries. We had guys that probably shouldn't have been going on, but they did.
Right.
They were. So that's our mentality, and that was taught to me by my coaches, from the Bruce McMillans, the Chris Porters, the Mark Bowens, and that's how. When we come on as coaches, so Dave Burns was the next Titan. I'm an ex-Titan. The next guy after me is going to be an ex-Titan, and we're just going to keep
it
this
going.
thing going. I mean,
That's cool.
And we're going to have some down years here.
Yeah.
We're a little bit thin. We don't have a lot of boys at certain grades. So, you come up, if you only have 5 kids, if we only get 5 boys 1 year, that's, can put a little dent
Right.
into your program. But
Well, I think I was in your last home game. I think I refereed the last home game. That was against Harrison Trumbull. And you announced your seniors.
12, yeah.
Yeah, and there was seemed like a big part of the roster that
Well,
were
it was 12
graduating.
guys, yeah.
12 guys.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's a lot.
That's
really.
a lot,
But
yeah.
the year previous, we graduated at 16.
Wow.
And the year previous, we only graduated at 7, right? So
and
it's
that's why-
it averages out to about 10.
So when you talk about the fact you're working with these young kids,
Yeah.
that's why it's so important in Sackville, because you're really filling up that roster as these kids are moving up from that Bantam level.
Yeah. Well, we don't have a Bantam team.
Oh yeah, you don't.
We don't have enough. Because, the roster size minimum is 24.
Right.
So on our roster this year, we have 12 and 8 grade 11. So that's 20.
Right.
So if we didn't have our grade 9s and 10s, we wouldn't even be able to field a team.
So can I ask you this?
You can ask whatever you want.
Does Amherst have a high school football team?
No. See, and Amherst had started building a really good minor program.
Right.
And we actually had last year 3 from Amherst on our team.
Okay, so the Amherst kids are allowed to come and play for Sackville?
Because they don't have a high school team.
Okay,
they were.
that's
But
what
this
my
year we
question
had
was.
none.
Okay.
Because the minor football program is now shut down
Down,
in Amherst,
yeah.
unfortunately. I think that place could be a gold mine over there. But so there was no kids that come over this year because they're not playing football anymore.
Right.
There's still athletes over there, but you're going to get a kid who's raw, right, with no experience.
Let's talk about this a little bit, because
Sure.
I may be, I don't want to say I'm part of the reason, but I may be part of the reason.
Or part of the problem.
Yeah.
Where are we going with this?
So,
we going? Yeah.
I want to talk about the minor programs there. One of the biggest challenge, and I know for me, on Saturdays I travel to an AUS game, so it could
Yeah.
be St. Evac, Cicadia, wherever, right?
Yeah.
If I'm lucky, I get Mount 8. But the last thing I want to do on a Sunday is travel to do a minor football game. And I even here locally, I really don't want to be on just so one of the biggest things I was trying to do when I was the VP for Moncton for the MBFOA here for a couple of years. And I was trying to develop officials in Sackville and Amherst to help handle those games. That's one thing we were never able to recruit in Sackville or Amherst. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I really don't know. It's you didn't ask the right people. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's some kids there that would do it. I mean, maybe it's something we have to look at.
Yeah.
And maybe
I would love to go on a football field, to be honest with you, and see 5 guys from Sackville refereeing it. I would absolutely love that.
It would be great from our standpoint too, because it's so funny, and this is one of the big things as an official, Scott. And I'll tell you one of the things, and we're going to get into Andy wants to talk about the whole coach official relationship. Should we go there first? Do you want to ask him that first?
Yeah.
All right. You start with that, and then we'll talk about that.
Because if we don't, you're going to get there anyway.
All right,
or you're going to be,
go ahead.
yeah. So,
Let Andy talk.
Yeah, no, I'm not worried about talking. I want to hear you talk about. I don't want to hear him talk about himself here. There's been enough.
I better
of that.
open my beer before
Yeah, you
we get
do
to
that.
conversation.
So I'm not really feeling any tension here, and here you are sitting in a ref's basement on his podcast. So I've watched Ray ref, and in the AOS especially, he's usually on the sidelines in front of one of the coaches, and in front of one of the benches, and the coach is hollering back and forth. But just from a coach's perspective, talk about just your relationship with the refs before and after the game. Be as specific as you want about this guy. If you remember something stupid he did, I'd love to hear about it actually. But just talk about that. Talk about that dynamic, I guess. The head coach and the refs.
No, I mean, I've been at this long enough that I pretty well know most people. But once in a while, you'll see a fresh face out there, and you don't really know them or their style or whatever. But and the game of football is very emotional.
Absolutely.
And normally, the penalty flags go against us.
Yeah.
And we track stats like crazy. So I can go back to any game and I know, like in the final game, it was 8 penalties against 2.
Right.
And then I go back and watch some penalties because we charted on our huddle, and I'll say, and then I'll put the real number out there, what I think the real number is. But we have a saying that we got to beat the other team and the officials. We, to be honest with you,
That's
a lot
fair.
of times,
Yeah.
and a lot of the penalties we're getting are. We have guys that are just overpowering other guys, and I'll watch it on film, and I'll actually see almost when the referee looked at the play, and at that point it might look like a holding or we're finishing a block or something, but prior to that it was just a really good block, So I've had my fair share of blow ups at officials, but I realize that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I've got to know these guys pretty well. I've a lot of the officials I've get to know over the years, and I just make sure I have good conversations with them at the beginning of the game and say, look, guys are like, especially after everything happened this year, I just said, when we showed up, I just want to make sure this is still a football game. Yeah. And we're allowed to tackle, and we're allowed to hit people, and we're allowed to do all that stuff. Yeah. But the rules hasn't changed from one week to the other.
It's we'll talk about high school for a second, because AUS is a little bit different. AUS, we've got 7 guys on the field, very experienced officials. I know when if I'm working the line of scrimmage, I know what my deep guy is going to be doing. I don't even have to worry about him. I've got my position. That's all I'm worrying about. At the high school level, because from an officiating, one of the biggest challenges we have is recruiting. It's the biggest challenge we face right now. And Scott, our roster. Yeah. Tomorrow we could lose half our roster to age. Yeah. And then it'll be really interesting what high school games look like. Wow. So a lot of times when we're bringing guys up, to the high school level, those officials are starting on the line of scrimmage. Yeah. There's a lot going on the line of scrimmage. Absolutely. Not just offsides and procedure and no end. Once that ball carrier gets out the pocket, that's basically the sideline guy. And from there, you got holding, you got blindside blocks now that you have to worry about. There's so much taking place out in those positions. And a lot of times, they're the newer officials. Yeah. Yeah. The experienced guys are in the middle of the field. Yeah. And that's a big challenge.
That's where a lot of things are happening.
That's where a lot of... When you watch it on film, that's where a lot of the calls are either, being missed. The blindside block one is a big one for us.
Yeah.
It's
one to be honest with you, that's the one I'm still confused with. I'm like, because I'll like, is this one game I'm explained to it this way, and the other game I'm explained to it this way? Yeah. So we had a couple this year that I'm just like, Yeah. You told me that, not you, but somebody told me that was the way to do it. Yeah. So I'll go tell my guys that's the way to do it.
Have your hands out in front of you.
And then we do that, and then we get called. So that was a frustrating one, and I understand that.
One of the things, and I've been preaching this to the choir for a while in training officials, we have access to so much video now, especially with Huddle.
That's right.
We need to have somebody going through Huddle, pulling out those particular plays so that officials can see what it is versus reading what it is.
Yeah.
Right? The problem is finding somebody that has the time to go and pull that stuff apart and build that library for us. But we're getting there. We're
getting there.
We're definitely getting
It wouldn't
better.
be like, I know we label all our Huddle, like we go label everything.
Yeah.
So if you said, Scott, on this game, tell me how many penalties, we would actually have it labeled so I could send you every single clip of every single penalty, and then you could use it as a learning,
coaching tool.
like a coaching tool, like same as we do with the coaching tool.
We meet every Monday night during the football season.
Yeah.
And a lot of the conversations in the past were, if team A does this and team B does that, what do we do? You know, I can't learn from that. I need to see it. And this year we really implemented more video, and I think the game improved by the end of the year. But there's no question at the high school level and probably the university level, we're always trying to improve, or we need to improve. We need to improve, right? So yeah, that's a good conversation. Yeah. But from my own perspective, working down there as a referee, it is one of the things I can tell you about working down in Sackville. One of the toughest crowds, and not only that, but the way when you leave the field to get to the dressing room at halftime, you got to walk through the crowd. Yeah. And there's sometimes in certain games I've been in where you almost need an escort to the dressing room.
Bit of a gauntlet kind of thing. Yeah.
There's one particular fan in Sackville, and I'll tell you one thing as an official, I love the thing that makes officiating enjoyable for me at the university level, high school level. I love the interaction with the coaches. And like when, whether it's positive or I'm getting, I'm giving grief on the sideline. I love the entire, if I didn't love it, I'd be out of it. Cause it's, it's a lot to take in a 3-hour period. But the fans and even the fans, I love my shirt's behind you, number 36. When I hear 36, I love that stuff, right? Yeah. There's a particular fan in Sackville, and it doesn't matter what the temperature is. It could be minus 40 degrees. This guy's going to be there in shorts, marching up and down the sideline. He's got hair. He looks like Ted Nugent with his hair out, and he's got his hoodie on. Yeah. And I was at the high school championship, and I saw him walking in a Patriots jersey, which I almost wanted to flag him right there as a fan. But talk to me about the fans there, because the fans there are fantastic, and they're knowledgeable too, versus a lot of the other fans.
That's the biggest thing is, again, we're a football town.
Right.
And we've been playing football at Tantramar and in Sackville since 1971.
Right.
So a lot of these guys that are at the games have suited up and played, so they understand the game.
Yeah.
And passionate. Holy man, like the guy you're talking about, his nickname is K-Dog.
K-Dog.
Okay. And he doesn't miss a game.
Yeah.
And a lot of times he's at our practices, and he's up, and he sends me texts all the time. Congratulations, good game. He's like another coach.
Right.
But there's so many of those guys. Like
Does he have a kid on the team?
He used to.
He did. Okay.
I coached his son. I'm going to say back 2012 might have been his son's last year.
Okay.
So, and he used to coach a little bit minor.
Yeah.
And but we got a lot of these guys around. Like we started a game at say 1 o'clock. They're there with their chairs at 12 o'clock watching warm up.
Yeah.
Talking to us and making sure, checking in, and just a lot of very passionate fans.
One of the things, and I was going to bring this up later, I'm going to bring it up now. One of the other huge advantages that Sackville has, and I love how you guys use it as an advantage, playing football in that grass field in the marsh, the wind. The wind is always howling there. Yeah. And I've seen on opening coin tosses where your team captain has chosen the wind. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So talk about that factor. Talk about that.
Okay, well, you're going to give all my secrets away. But believe it or not, we check the tides. Okay, we check the tides. So we know when the tides are going to shift, because usually when the tides shift, the wind shifts.
Wow.
So we'll check All the coaches will check prior to, like, is a shift going to happen in the third quarter?
Right.
So we want to make sure we always have the win in our favor. And so many teams come there, and they try to, if they win the coin toss, they try to outsmart us, but a lot of times they get it wrong, right? Because I'm like, so they're going to end up having the wind at their back or in their face 3 quarters potentially because of the way the winds are going to shift.
Wow.
So we know that. And just playing on the grass and playing on the marsh. There are a lot of grass practice teams, but there isn't a lot of grass playing teams. Like Riverview is one of those teams.
Yeah.
But a lot of times they'll shift over to turf field in the playoffs or whatever. So it was hard. We really wanted the final on the grass.
I was surprised.
We were forced. And that could be a whole show on itself, but we were forced to go to Mount A.
Really?
We were forced.
What's funny is I had seen the schedule, 1 o'clock at the high school.
Yeah.
My wife and I drove up there at 12:30 to...
Well, that was where it was supposed to happen.
Yeah. And then we got there. There
on
was
Thursday,
nobody
it
there.
got changed to...
So we ended up sitting in the bar at Mount A for an hour and a half waiting for the game to go.
What was the reasoning, Scott? Was it just how many fans were expected, or was there more to it?
It had nothing to do with that. It had to do with the... it's called the MBIAA.
Yeah.
And then it had to do with Moncton High not wanting to play at 2 o'clock, not wanting to play at 1 o'clock because of Remembrance Day. I'll just leave it at that. And
Wow.
because of, if we would have started at 2 o'clock, we would have probably run out of light.
Right.
And so we went back and forth. We tried to convince them to come down for a 1 o'clock start. Therefore, it would have gave us about 3.5 hours in case of injury or whatever to get the full game in. They didn't agree with it. So when the 2 o'clock game time started, we were forced to go to Mount A.
Because you needed the lights.
We needed the lights.
Okay.
What's interesting, though, the wind still played a huge factor
It
in that
still
game.
played a huge
It
factor.
came in off the
Yeah.
Commons, and I'm not sure if you got this tracked, but no points were scored against the Commons at all day, right?
Well, you
Everything
take
was
2
with
run
wind.
teams anyway.
Yeah.
The win wasn't a huge factor, but I think they ended up throwing the ball. They attempted maybe 15 passes.
Yeah.
We attempted 6.
There was 3 interceptions against the win, all caught by number 9,
Jeff. Yeah.
Jeff Lafford. Yeah. So that was a crazy game. So I'm going to keep. I want to keep asking you a couple other questions here. So
This is fun.
let's talk about, without getting into why Odyssey or Matthew Martin did what they did. Okay, on the podcast, I said to these guys when we were talking about the subject, what are we teaching the kids by quitting? I fully didn't get it. As an official, I have to kind of respect that, know. But let's talk about your team. How's it with everything that took place with the Odyssey game, the fact that they canceled, the fact that national press picked this up. I have a relative in Victoria that mentioned to me that they saw it in the paper there. How did it impact
every single news outlet
I can
in
imagine.
Canada contact me?
I can imagine. The game that I came down to do where we had the Lafford son, CBC was there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they were all there.
How did that impact your team?
You know what? At the end of the day, it was positive. I would say probably by the Wednesday when kind of things were starting to clear, and the boys were very frustrated. You got to realize how hard these guys work.
Absolutely.
To show up and not be able to finish a football game, which was, you've reviewed the film, everybody's reviewed the film.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, how they talk about it on Facebook all the time, fake news.
Yeah.
It was the biggest fake news I've seen in a long, long, long time.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's like we have, again, we're film people, we're picture people. I think 36 kids started the game, and then when they came up for second half, 35 shook hands. So I'm like, where's the 9 that went to hospital or throwing up or whatever? But anyway, I don't want to get into that.
Yeah.
But I think by Wednesday, we were hitting a sled, which is one of our big trademark ways to get our kids in shape. We hit the 7-man sled a lot. And I think the day before, Wednesday, we were getting ready to hit the sled, and I blow the whistle, and I yell, sled, and everybody runs down, we hit the sled, and one of the kids yelled out, hey, boys, we're famous. We're famous. I said, yeah, we're famous. We're famous.
Yeah.
Okay? And you're going to look back this... I was joking with the boys the other day. I said, you're going to look back at this season. You'll see the news articles. I always put the news articles together in a little magazine for them to read. And I said, in 20 years, it's going to be like 22 guys with concussions didn't finish it. It's going to, or maybe in 20 years it's going to be like 40 guys didn't finish the game. You knocked everybody out.
Right.
But, you know, over the years the story gets a little bit bigger, but
Right.
it didn't really impact them. It was harder on the teachers at the high school because their school was being demonized, and it was harder on the coaches because we're not doing anything wrong. Like
Right.
if anything, we're doing everything right. And a couple of the injuries that probably did happen to when I go back and review film, because I'm a film freak, is they just weren't hitting properly. They weren't tackling properly.
Right.
And that's how they were getting hurt.
Yeah.
It wasn't us hitting them, you know, and it wasn't a very rough game. And I felt bad actually for Bill Pickerel, who was doing the game that night, because somehow the coach was trying to blame Bill. I'm like, how can you be trying to blame the referee? Like,
Right.
on what's going on? Like, wasn't even right.
The comments that came out of the press, you made a particular comment about the fact that the coach hadn't prepared his team. Did that come back to bite you at all? Like you must have gotten a lot of flack.
Well, if you look at I had a pretty fun week too.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say fun week, but I had 2 death threats in 1 week.
Wow.
You know, like you're coaching football.
Yeah.
And you're winning.
Yeah.
And you get 2 death threats and a couple other threats.
Yeah.
And called a whole bunch of different names,
Yeah.
which I don't. Whatever. That's the way life is, and I run a business here in town.
Right.
I mean, I have a reputation to protect too. So
Right.
I had actually a lot of support for my clients and from people who know me.
Yeah.
But I think, to summarize that whole, anybody who knows anything about football understands what happened.
Right.
It's the outside people that really don't understand football.
Exactly.
And there's one gentleman in particular, I'm not going to name his name, but he was deemed to be the guru or the expert. And he coached football for 6 years and never won a football game. But he's given all this press and telling everybody what happened in that game. I'm like, well, you coached football for 6 years and you never won a football game?
Yeah.
And you're the expert? I think you better go back to the drawing board. And I won't sit here and say his name.
Without mentioning, he also was on CBC and really gave it to us officials as well.
Yeah.
And
but never won a football game as a coach.
And
I checked it. I went and checked stats.
I wanted to call CBC and give my feedback on it, but the NBFOA shut us down. There was no, and I have this vehicle of a podcast.
Yeah.
But again,
he doesn't deserve his name to be said.
Yeah, I can push the boundary a little bit, but
we're not going to say his name because he doesn't deserve it.
Yeah. So it's been a crazy year, and
great year.
So it finished off though. This is 3 championships in a row. The only blemish, I mean, other than those 2 games, but I mean, they're not blemishes on you. Your team did. Yeah. You guys lost for the first time this year.
It felt good.
Since what? It was 2.5 years since you'd lost the ball game.
2014.
Yeah.
Well, what was good about that, to be honest with you, was like we were all walking around with weights on our shoulder. We didn't realize until we lost, because a lot of those kids, right? A lot of my grade 12 boys were only in grade 10 when everything started, when the streak started. So I had one of my captains come up to me probably, Tuesday or Wednesday after we lost and said, "Coach, you know what? I'll be honest with you. I feel so much better that that this weight is off, because we felt so much pressure to win."
Wow.
And I'm like, I told him after right after we lost, we went down. We always go down into the end zone and we talk. And I made it real short. It was about 30-second speech. I said, "Boys, was the trophy presented tonight?" They're like, "No, it wasn't presented tonight." I said, "Good. We're back to work tomorrow, and this game is done. We lost. Good. The streak's over. Now it's our time." I said, the only streak we really care about is the championship streak, trying to get the 3 in a row.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That was our streak.
Wow.
And that was probably the best thing that happened to our football team this year.
Wow.
The best thing.
Not even Bill Belichick has won 3 in a row.
No?
No?
There's a lot of high school teams that have done.
Have they? Yeah. It's pretty impressive. When you talk again about Sackville and the 400 students in that school to win 3 provincial championships against schools like Fredericton, St. John, Moncton High, big schools. That's impressive stuff.
Yeah.
Impressive stuff. Andy, I've been talking a long time. You got a question?
No, not really. No, it's been interesting listening to you guys go back and forth. But yeah, I guess, Scott, I mean, it's 3 in a row, and that is your biggest accomplishment this year, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
But just from in the grand scheme of things, just as the coach of Sackville, like, you know, how much does that mean to you? Like, you know, in the whole coaching career and perspective, I mean, this has to be the biggest, right?
Yeah.
The biggest thing.
Well, again, this is not about me. This is about we, and this is about Sackville, and,
Yeah. Right.
and this is about the guys that, you know, taught me how to do this thing back in the 80s. Like, Tantramar won 3 championships, 80, 81, 82, and that was the. If you look at the coaching staff there, those are the ones that passed it on to Dave Burns, and then Dave Burns passed it on to me, and my job is now to find some younger blood and pass it on to them, and the same work ethic and the same. But we're going to go through our, hey, listen, we have some unbelievable athletes. We have, I think we graduated 6 to the AUS last year. We're going to graduate a couple this year. Like, we have some good athletes here. We have some great coaches. I looked at my staff. We have 100 years of coaching experience.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of staffs in New Brunswick that can say that. And that's only 7 guys too. I mean, some staffs have 20 coaches on staff. And
I want to get into your kids first in a second,
Yeah.
but hearing you talk, I mean, you are so passionate about football, so passionate about coaching. My question to you is, what about aspirations? So do you have any aspirations above high school?
no.
Because your resume, I mean, your resume would
I got
definitely.
an opportunity to coach for Team Canada this year. I did it last year as a mentor.
Okay.
I went down to Florida. I coached with the U18 team. It was an unbelievable experience. Steve Snyder, who was the offensive coordinator at Western,
Yeah.
he was down there as the offensive coordinator. I mean, I just sat with this guy for a week and just picked his brain.
Yeah.
I'm going down this year to Texas, Dallas Stadium.
Yeah.
With the U16 team. My son's on that team. My older son's on the U19 team. So those are my aspirations, my family, right?
Right.
But I love learning.
Yeah.
And I think what's going on in I've been fortunate enough. I've coached for Team New Brunswick for the last 3 years, and I've learned so much from so many people. And I believe that coaches that don't do that or don't put themselves out there are not, and that's where we're learning.
Right.
And we're very open. And guys that have got to know me over the last couple of years realize that I'm not that bad of a guy.
Right.
And I share.
Yeah.
And I'll tell anybody the formula.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of putting the formula together and
putting the time in.
And putting the time in. And we put the time in. It's just not just me, my coaches. And we track Huddle. If you go on Huddle, you can track every single player and every coach, how much film they're watching. And I'm a tracker. And I track every single day who's watching film. So if my coaches aren't watching film, I say, why aren't you watching film this week?
This is, I mean, for any coaches that are listening to this, they need to be taking notes, because that is the major difference right there. I can't see that kind of work being put in by other high schools. I just can't see it.
It's happened. It does happen.
Yeah.
But, it's still, again, we got athletes, we got dedicated coaches, and my challenge would be to be in better shape than us in playoff time.
Right.
And I don't know. I think what happens is coaches, and I see it, and I hear it from talking to other guys, is they start worrying too much about scheme.
Yeah.
And they start worrying about too much thing, and we just worry about doing the right things every single day and doing them perfectly.
Right.
And we ran, just to give you an example, and when we ran the championship against Riverview in 2015, we ran the same play 26 times.
Okay.
Okay, so is that a scheme thing, or is that just stop it? And we ran second half last year against Leo Hayes. We ran 2 plays. The whole second half, 2 plays. A toss right and a counter left.
Yeah.
Fourth quarter, we ran a toss right, a toss left, a lead right, a lead left. Like, we're talking Adam football
Right.
plays. But our guys do them perfect.
Right.
So you have to fit that up, and you have to take that on for 4 quarters. And
Well,
if you don't do it,
You're done.
you talk about
you're not gonna wear us out.
it's funny you say that, because they always talk about the line, how important line play is, and from a technical standpoint, I'm a white hat. I'm back with the offensive line. Your technical ability on the offensive line, that's what that's what wins you most games like that when it comes.
Well, I coach the offensive line, and I'm the offensive coordinator. So I have another gentleman, Joe Lafford, who coaches the O-line with me. But I am probably very technical, and I'm hard on these guys.
Yeah.
Like to the point where it's like I probably in their sleep they're like, I wish he'd shut up. I wish he'd shut up. Like, but we're talking angles, like a 45-degree angle versus a 50 versus a 7. Like, and I'm all about angles because it's all about getting your hands and your head in the right place, and that's what football is.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to put the time into that stuff, you're not going to win football games.
That's amazing.
Unless you can truly overpower people, you know, and have all the athletes.
So let's talk about your kids real quick. I've had
the Titans.
Yeah. Well, now I'm going to talk about your sons. Okay.
Oh, my sons.
Your kids. So I have had the luxury of watching Aiden play minor football. Now he's up at Mount A. He didn't play this year, but I see him on the sideline. He got into one game. Did he get into it?
He had 2 carries and 2 catches.
Did he? Okay. I wasn't in the game.
Nice.
In Bishop's, up in Bishop, yeah.
Okay. So tell me about what it's like to be on the sideline and managing your kid going through these, from a coach perspective, and then also as a father watching your kid from the sidelines, because especially Aiden, he was a fabulous running back at the high school level. Tell me about that.
Well, when you're coaching a football game, you're not watching.
Right.
And I used to say this all the time. At the end of the game, I'm like, how did Aiden play? Like I didn't really know how he played until I watched film the next day.
Yeah.
I've always coached my kids in hockey and then when they come to high school in football. So I can separate it really easy. But obviously I'm very proud of Aiden and his accomplishment. And then this year Owen as a grade 10, he started and he was a conference all-star and he had a bunch of picks and he's going to Team Canada and so I'm very proud of him. And my little guy finally got to play this year and he had a bunch of touchdowns and he's a good running back as well. So it's different when you're coaching your kids, but it's not.
So in what you just said, so a lot of times, I listen to coaches' press conferences after an NFL game, for example, and they'll ask the coach about a play or whatever the case may be, and the coach will always say, I don't know, I have to see film. Yeah. I need to see the film. So you're saying coaches aren't watching the game.
They're not watching the game ever.
Really?
I have my coaches up in the booth.
Yeah.
And I'm the offense coordinator. So when the offense is on, I'm calling plays. When the offense is off, I'm talking to the boys. I'm making notes of what we're coming up with next series.
Wow.
For the tight games.
Yeah.
After a while, against the less competitive games, you're just shooting the shit about whatever.
Yeah.
And it's fun. But we want to coach. Listen, we don't want those kind of games. We want to coach. We put a lot of time into it. So you don't watch. If you're watching, you're not coaching. If you're watching the game, you're not coaching.
That's great. That's great. See, that's an insight from a coach I wouldn't know.
There you go.
All right, let's finish up with this one. So this year, I had after the Odyssey game, I came down and I did the game between you and Harrison Trumbull, which right off the bat, that was a bit of a debacle because there was 9 or 10 kids that didn't come dressed because of what had happened the week before. And late in that game, we had that play where Thomas Lafford came on, and it was about the 38-yard line. And you ran it in a long way for a touchdown. Yeah. Walk me through what that meant, not only to Thomas, but your team and the town of Sackville.
Well, first of all, I'll start with Mark Teed, because Mark had called me on Monday. And just, he might get upset I say this, but he's like, Scott, I don't know I'm getting phone calls, I'm getting emails from parents, and we're gonna have to pull out. And Mark's like, I don't want to do that. Yeah. I don't want to do that. So Mark, being Mark, and I've known Mark, I have so much respect for this guy, emailed his parents and said, look, I've talked to Scott. I know, I watched the film. These guys aren't a bunch of animals, right? And if we were 6-0, we'd be going to Tantramar. Right. So just because we're 0-6, we're still going to Tantramar. Yeah. So Mark was, and then we talked about that I wanted to get Tom into the game. Tom, the Lafford family, they're like my family. Right. They're like my brothers. Yeah. 2 of them are on my coaching staff, and they literally live 3 houses down. So I've seen Tom grow up, and he's always been involved with football because his father's been involved with football. Right. And I said to him the week before, I said, I want to get Tom in, if the time is right against Trimble, and I'll talk to the coach and we'll make sure. So that Friday we practiced what we call the Tom play.
Yeah.
It's just a little. His brother went to the quarterback and he gave him a handoff and he was just going to run the football. And he was nervous. Tom was nervous. He wasn't sure. I wasn't even sure if he was going to do it when it came down to the game. But when it actually happened, again, the kids were so happy with everything that had happened to us, and the kids were so happy for him.
Yeah.
And we were happy as coaches. And obviously his uncle and his father being on the sideline, and all his family being in the stand. It was an unbelievable experience.
Well,
you see it all the time, but to actually see it happen live and to see how the kids, like the players, reacted was unbelievable.
Well, it was from an officiating standpoint. We talked about it before the game.
Yeah.
And I talked about the experience here on the show. As the white hat running downfield, I had tears coming down my eyes.
There was a lot of tears that day.
Yeah, and we got video of it, and we had it on our show that week, and we pushed the hell out of it just because it was finally something positive in the news, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody was grabbing onto the stuff they didn't understand. Finally, something positive, and we pushed it. We had it all over the place.
Oh yeah, we did, and we got positive at the Mount A game or at the high school championship. While we're sitting in the pond waiting for the game, some fans from Sackville came in, and it was Principal Lafford.
Yeah.
So we started talking, and she didn't know I was the referee. I didn't know exactly who she was at the moment, and I had reached out to her through email, our website, and anyways. Once we realized who the two of us, she gave me a big hug in the right. It was unbelievable, and all the other people were in there. I pointed out. I said, "Now keep in mind, she's hugging an official. I'm an off-duty official today. We need these relationships in Sackville."
Yeah.
So
No, we know that's good.
Well, that's great. Listen, Scott, I really appreciate you coming on.
No problem.
We want to send you down a bottle of our Done Right sauce. This is my little brother Nick's company. You've heard us talk about it.
I have.
All right. Try it out.
I will.
And thanks again for coming on. We really appreciate it. And,
this is
go
fun.
Titans.
Thanks, Scott.
We'll do it
All
again
right.
next year, hopefully.
Awesome.
Sounds
We'd
good.
love to have you on. Anytime you want to come on, we'd love to have you on.
For sure.
Awesome.
Yep. Thanks.
Go
Thank you.
Titans. Thanks. All right, guys, that was our interview with Scott O'Neill from the Tantramar Titans.
Yeah.
Andy, I know I did a lot of the talking in that interview, but tell me, what did you think of that guest?
I think it had to go as long as it did.
Yeah.
We certainly weren't prepared for an interview of that length, but that was a lot of fun. Scott was a great guy. We way more open about everything than I would have imagined. So great interview, and it was a good time.
It was fantastic. I got a lot of great insights from coaching that I didn't know before. I didn't know before because I'm not on the sideline. I'm in the field.
I learned a lot about Sackville. I thought Sackville had this hidden community that I've never seen before that had all these kids that were producing this monster team, and clearly that's not the case.
All right.
Yeah.
Listen, folks, we had a whole bunch of stuff to talk to you about tonight about the UTEC Bowl coming up, or sorry, the Vanier Cup and the Grey Cup, but we are out of time. So let's get into this real quick here. So in the Vanier, we've got the Laval Rouge d'Or. No, Laval Rouge et Or. Okay.
Red and gold.
Red and gold. Thanks.
Yeah.
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 I was trying to give them, their due.
I was just making sure I understood correctly there. Yeah.
Now, they're taking on the Western Mustangs, who are the powerhouse in Canadian CIS or U Sports football right now.
Yeah.
But Laval it's their 11th trip. They're 9-1 in Vanier Cups. Andy, who are we picking in this game? Laval or the powerhouse offense of Western Mustangs?
I might need your help on this. Like my reach in the university football game ends with the AUS. That's where my interest levels go down. I know that the rest of Canada is much stronger than the AUS. Both these teams are super strong. When I looked at the teams they played, I know they were strong. And when I look at the scores, they look really even to me. So And I know you've been saying they both have lots of tradition in this Vanier Cup.
Yeah.
They both have lots of success. I don't know what to think, but I'm tempted to say Laval, and it's an uneducated prediction.
I don't know how you don't go with Laval. 9-1 in Vanier Cup since 1999.
Yeah.
I really don't know the teams outside the AUS conference as well as either. And that's something we're going to work on for next year.
Yeah.
Next year, we're going to focus more on U Sports football in Ontario, Quebec, and Atlantic. So I feel very comfortable taking Laval in this game just based on their history in this game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then Laval it is.
We're
Let's
taking
go
Laval. All right.
All.
Now, we've got the Grey Cup coming up.
Yeah.
And the Grey Cup is very interesting. We both thought that Toronto and Edmonton were going to be in the final.
We did.
They're not.
Nope.
Toronto made it, but Calgary snuck in. Well, they didn't really sneak in. They dominated in the second half of that football game.
Yeah.
So we got Bo Levi Mitchell, 4,700 yards passing versus Ricky Ray, 5,546 yards.
Yeah.
Who are we taking in the Grey Cup?
I'm taking Toronto. Ricky Ray plays big in the big games. Bo Levi Mitchell, it doesn't play great in the big games. I mean, it's
right
there. You can see it. This is strength against strength. Like, even though if you look at Toronto's record and they were in the East and everything like that, you wouldn't think that this was a close matchup at all. But this is the closest matchup available in the CFL in terms of strength against strength in these teams. And I'm taking Ricky because Ricky's patient. Ricky takes what the defense gives him. He always plays big in the big game.
Right.
And Bo Levi Mitchell's not patient. And I don't know and I think that's going to hurt him against such a strong Toronto defense. So yeah. I'm going Argos.
When you look at, and if you really want to see Andy and I break this down, go watch Across the Line through Rogers. The video will be on Facebook soon. Andy and I will be sharing it. But basically what we talked about on there is when you look at the stats from a defensive perspective, it's pretty well par between these two teams.
Yep.
When you look at rushing yards between these two teams, par. Mm-hmm. But when you look at passing stats and receiving stats, Toronto has the edge in this because of the veteran quarterback in Ricky Ray. And I still can't help but think, watching Saskatchewan run that punt in for a touchdown with 2 minutes left to go, and watching Ricky Ray march down the field and score that touchdown, I think this game is going to be very similar. It's going to come right down to one of the final plays. You watch it, and I'm going to take Ricky Ray to win the Grey Cup. The only thing Ricky needs to do is he needs to put a W in front of that Ray for us.
The only, or how about in front of both ours? W
that'd
Ricky,
be great.
W Ricky, W Ray.
Ricky Ray with the W's.
Ray.
I think Ray Perkin would love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And another crazy example we talked about on Across the Line was one time. There was a time this season where Ricky, he's not rattled by anything.
No,
he threw an they were driving, they were behind in the fourth quarter with 1:12 left. And he threw an interception.
Yeah. And
he walked over to the sideline, and his defense forced a 2-and-out, and then he marched down the field and they won the game. He wasn't rattled at all.
No.
I mean, you got to go with Ricky Ray. I hope it works out. Like we mentioned before, the guy's 0 for double digits for most outstanding player. Don't know if he's a surefire Hall of Famer without that. I really hope he gets that award this year. It's going to be tough against
Will he walk away like Henry Burris if he wins the Grey Cup?
I don't know enough about him.
Okay.
I hear rumors that he's probably going to end up somewhere, potentially as a backup quarterback and semi-coach.
I say he's going to retire as a player.
Potentially.
Retire as a player.
I think he can still play. Why retire at all?
Exactly.
My gosh, why go out on the...
Now, anyway. Jeannie and I have to... On Across the Line, I made a statement that I was going to the game with one of the guys I referee football with.
Yeah, I noticed it at the time.
Yeah, and I said that because he's the one that's giving me the tickets, and we're going to be sitting with him. But
he's backpedaling and
I
trying
am
to explain
actually going to the Ottawa with my wife Jeannie at the back of the room. She pointed that out to me when I got home. I didn't mean to leave you out, but yes, we're going to Ottawa together. We're leaving tomorrow morning.
Going with your wife.
Jeannie, Who are you picking for a winner in this game?
Toronto, for sure.
You're going
Eastern
Toronto
team.
all the way?
Always the Eastern.
You don't want to wear my Stampeders hat that I have up on the wall up here?
No.
I'm taking it with me. Because we're gonna be going to the team. There's team parties on Saturday night before the game. So,
But
I'll go to a team party, but you
you-
always go for the East.
yeah, and you can go to all. Don't worry about what jersey you're wearing. Like the Grey Cup is just a big celebration
It's a
of Canadian
celebration.
football, and there's the odd drunken idiot, but
Yeah.
the teams are very open to celebrating together. I mean, heck, there's going to be team parties for the Hamilton Ticats.
Oh, there will.
Every won like
every-
4 games, so you can go to all these parties. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
every team is going to be having a party there. Every team has a bar that they're going to be hosting their
Yep.
parties in. All right, before we get out of here, Andy, it's been quite a night for information. Any final thoughts before we get out?
Go Toronto Argos, and you two have a really nice trip in Ottawa. Say hi to James Duthie for me.
All right.
Say hi to Ron O'Mara. Don't wear the Stamps hat when you're with Ron O'Mara. That's my advice to you.
All right, sounds good. Jeannie, do you want to any final thoughts before we get out of here?
I'm just really excited to travel to Ottawa to go to the Grey Cup. It's a bucket list.
It's a bucket list?
2017 is turning out to be a good year.
Awesome. How'd you enjoy the interview? What did you
I
think of
thought
the
he was awesome.
Awesome.
I liked the his attitude about practice. I
Yeah.
thought that was really important. It's something that I think some of these other coaches and players, if they could learn from.
Well, you're a statistician yourself, so you love all that.
I love the film thing. I like
Yeah.
what he was saying. I can relate to that. Like just watching it, watching that repetitive action over and over and over again to perfect it. So
Yeah.
I can see that. And we asked if he was a golfer. He said that he was. So I can picture him watching his swing over and over again.
There you go.
Well, he said he tracks who watches the film on that,
Yeah,
so
that's
he knows how much
He
you've been
knows.
watching.
He knows. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get out of here, folks, let's thank our sponsors again. If it's doesn't matter what night of the week it is, let's put it this way: on Saturday for the Vanier Cup and for the Grey Cup, you better make sure you're drinking Moose Light.
Scary good.
Scary good.
Yeah,
Scary
make
good.
it happen.
And again, we got to thank our boys, the Doyles. Pens, shirts, hats, jackets.
I think we need to shift this up, actually. If you potentially want to have a kiss cam
Oh yeah, the kiss cam
at a sporting event, a birthday party, that might be weird. Anything at all. Karaoke.
Yeah.
Hey, if you want a kiss cam at karaoke, you talk to our boys at the Doyle's Corporate Image.
The Doyles are gonna
Because
love.
they know kiss cams.
They know their kiss cams. They
Yep.
know their kiss cams.
Yeah.
And if your kitchen sucks, and most likely it does, make sure you go get yourself some done right sauce. This stuff's gonna fix up that kitchen.
Coach Scott O'Neill's kitchen is about to not suck.
It's about to not suck.
Yeah.
As far as my final thoughts before we get out of here, I just want to say, wow. I didn't know what to expect coming into this interview.
Right.
I loved it. We could have talked for 3 days, I think.
you could have.
And we're going to definitely have Scott back on the show at some point. I can't wait to get to Ottawa. Jeannie, I'm ready to go now. You want to go?
Sure.
Let's go. Let's jump in the car. I want to get going. I'm looking so forward to being up there and running into some past First Down Sports guests. Andy, I hope you enjoy the game.
I will. One thing we forgot to point out, not to derail you here, but thanks to Phil for coming down for the show.
Yes, Phil. We got it. That was our first guest appearance from Phil.
One of the only dogs in the world that was tall enough to be caught on camera here.
There you go. That's right. He loves Scott. From the second Scott came in, he was he felt the alpha male in him right off the bat.
I guess so, yeah. All right, yeah.
So. All right, guys, that's all we have for you this week. Enjoy the Vanier, enjoy the Grey Cup. We'll talk to you next week to talk about the Grey Cup experience.
Hopefully
afterwards.
about how right we were.
All right. Have a great week.